You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
So just to explain, we use a traffic light system in case you're new to this. Green is generally good. Amber is like, oh, not sure if you're good or bad, or, you know, you could be better or it could be worse. And then red is obviously for the bad. Maybe reveal a little bit about how today's show has been made. There's a lot of golf in this, Kathleen. I didn't have you pegged as a golf wanker like the rest of the people here, but actually these were Nathan's performance rankings that we're doing.
These are Nathan's performance rankings, and you're very right about me not being a golf aficionado. It wouldn't be my strongest sport in the world, but we're going to give it a go anyways. And sure, I was following along yesterday, as I think most of Ireland was, like you were saying at the top of the show, with Lowry and McIlroy both in contention. Are we starting with the bad golf or the good golf?
Let's start with the bad golf.
Start with the bad golf.
I think, so there was a really interesting interview yesterday with Patrick Reed in the Sunday Times where he was talking about how they've turned him into the black hat and that there's a massive conspiracy that golf decided they needed a villain. Patrick Reed won a tournament. It was like, oh, I'm the top 5 players in the world. And everybody was like, yeah, you're the guy. And he was making the point that so Patrick Reed was accused of all sorts of things, cheating and theft while he was in college. He says he's got 2 sworn affidavits essentially from coaches to say that the cheating never happened and the theft never happened, which, you know, is kind of important because that was the first story that came out about Patrick Reed. And then there was all the stuff about him essentially divorcing his family, not quite Macaulay Culkin style, but similar enough that, that the family aren't in contact anymore, and that his wife has taken the brunt of American golf fans who, let's face it, might be the worst people on the planet. You know, there's like
They're not a great bunch.
the competition is very intense, but American golf fans will be right up there as some of the worst people on the planet. And how frequently, you know, she's crying behind her sunglasses. And so that was the piece that was published on Sunday morning, I think, in the Sunday Times. And then he ripped the course up with a 62 and was like, he's going to win this tournament. This is absolutely sensational. So that would have been like the biggest triumph that Live Golf could possibly have had if Patrick Reed tells everybody, actually, there is this conspiracy. He's got a like multi-hundreds of millions, I can't remember, is it 260 or is it 700 million lawsuit going against the Golf Channel and NBC and one of the Golf Channel commentators. So it's wild stuff, right? It's like very, very interesting stuff. On the other side of this, from the Live Golf perspective, is Sergio Garcia, who has not come out very well from all of the stories around the transfer of Liv over. The texts between him and Greg Norman were obviously released as part of the ongoing court case, which, again, won't finally work its way through the system until early next year. And it seemed like he was, you know, he was earning his money for Liv.
Garcia always just seems to be at the front of something controversial, or at the front, like it's consistently week in, week out, he is saying something that offends someone, or he is doing something that offends the culture of golf, or the I suppose, politeness that they like to think that they put around the entire thing. And I think the fact that after everything everyone has said about Liv, what he did this weekend was not great at all when you think of the players that are stuck up in this legal case and don't get to play. So one of Patrick Reed's points was, like, I deserve to be here. I have done as much for this tour as anybody has. I've played it as often, if not more often, than a lot of the people complaining about the fact that I'm and other Live golfers are here. So he might have a case. I don't know the stats on how often he's played in the European Tour or the DP World Tour or the DP Tour, whatever it's called these days, over the last number of years. But he certainly felt like he was worthy of his place in the field at Wentworth. It's a big tournament from a European Tour perspective. You know, there's points and money on offer that will allow some people to save their card and so therefore save their livelihood. And that's why pre-tournament, McIlroy was saying, you know, these guys shouldn't be here. They're taking up space that other people really need. There was a bunch of people who'd said that. Lowry said the same thing. One of the people who, you know, who was supposed to be like a European Tour, you know, Ryder Cup, if there was a crest on his heart, I'm sure he would have kissed it for the crowd performatively down through the years, was Sergio Garcia, who took his place in the tournament, right? And then stank the joint out on day one, 4 over par. Day two, as we know, got cancelled.
And then there was a debate about whether that was going to happen again. And then day 3, come tee-off time.
Just isn't there.
No, doesn't show up. It's like, well, I'm not going to win now. There's no cut, right? So there's no reason to leave. Oh, sorry. There was a cut after those rounds, wasn't there?
I think there was.
Okay. Either way, Sergio Garcia withdraws from the BMW PGA.
And of course he goes quietly. He doesn't turn up anywhere that he shouldn't turn up afterwards, right?
Texas, Alabama. Big game in college football. You know, two big teams. And there he is in the end zone, pre-kickoff, having the crack. I don't know who he's with, but he's with somebody. I don't know if that's... I actually don't know. Is that his wife?
I have no idea.
It could be. I'm not sure. So there you go. Sergio, not arsed playing in the tournament that he's taken the place of somebody who really needs the place. Has done his little bit of shilling for Liv, and maybe he should be the black hat as opposed to Patrick Reed. He certainly, you know, he fits the bill.
Off the basis of the weekend, I think he deserves it. And it's a bit like you were saying. I mean, maybe Patrick Reed has played this event many, many times before and has earned that place there. But even just the fact that he turned up and stayed and didn't go fly over to the States for a college football game, because he would have had to have known he was going to that game a day or two before to actually make it over there. So he clearly finished up on the Thursday and just went, right, well, that's me. I'm gone.
It turns out, and Greg Allen tweeted this, Alfredo Farcia Heredia was the first alternate in the tournament. So if Garcia had pulled out instead of playing, your man would have got in. And his current situation is he's 134th on the road to Dubai with the cutoff for a card next season at 121. So he could easily have won enough money to save his career. And he also happens to be a Spaniard. So I'm sure Sergio Garcia is very, very popular in that gaff and everywhere else. So look, you know, when someone shows you who they are, you should believe them.
Very much so. Very, very much so. And it's sad, it's like you said, like it's actually harming someone's career, someone's potential earnings in the future for a man that definitely does not need extra money. Yeah,
so I think it's fair enough that Nathan would have put him in the red this morning.
No, I agree with Nathan on that one, despite not being the aficionado that Nathan is.
Hopefully we've done some justice to it. Right. Okay, if you have a view on that, you can leave a comment in the YouTube stream, or of course you can always get us at Off The Ball AM on Twitter. Now, also in the red this morning, women's football in Galway.
Yeah, Galway United released, or Galway, sorry, FC, they're not connected to Galway United, released a statement over the weekend saying that they had reluctantly decided not to apply for inclusion in next season's Women's National League. And the statement was quite strange because they went on to talk about all the success they had had, you know. They mentioned the players that have come through the club that have been successful. They're only 5th in the league at the moment, so it's not like they're performing badly or anything. And it's just interesting because it just seems like another thing coming out of this Galway team where they aren't performing all that well. I mean, they had Ruth Fahey as CEO for... I think it was a couple of months in the end, and then ended up having to release an apology to her saying that they didn't have the structures in place to actually support a full-time CEO. And it's sad for women's football in the country. It's sad for football in the country, and it's also sad for football in the West because, you know, we had Sligo Rovers joining this season. Everyone was really excited. There was a new team, new competition. Obviously, the women's team is smashing it at the moment as well. So I'm not sure. There has been some talk that maybe they will come under the Galway United banner, and that's why Galway have announced this, because they're confident that that will happen. But yeah, it just seems strange to go ahead with it if that is the case without a little bit of a backup plan, or at least be able to say, like, look guys, we've built all this and we've done all these amazing things. We're now passing the baton on to someone else and it's coming under that team. But that's not what they decided to do. As you say, they're 5th in the table at the moment, and it's like completely safe mid-table. You know, they're on 36 points. Wexford Hughes and Shelburne are 49 and 48 points. So, like, they're not disgracing themselves. This isn't like everything has gone to pot to complete shambles. It's actually the opposite. They seem to have built, and the statement is suggesting that they've built a throughput of talent. So it's a big challenge to the football people of Galway to rally around and, you know, get together and come and sort it out. The speculation about Galway United is interesting, right? Because obviously Galway United's takeover by the Comer Group has been affected, and so
it looked like finally football in Galway is on a very secure footing. So it would make sense if under one banner football was to progress, but you would tend to hope that that would be done in the background and this announcement would happen. We're changing to Galway United. The systems have been put in place.
Yeah, exactly. And I know like there is a lot of eagerness for League of Ireland and like WNL clubs to be under the one banner within the FAI. So if that is the case, great, more power to them. But also it seems a bit weird, and even with them blaming additional costs and demanding of time, and you're like, well, if you're a club that were looking at putting in a full-time CEO last year and now you're all of a sudden saying it all costs too much and you can't run a club effectively, it sounds like there's something more going on there, and I feel like this is definitely not the last we've heard of this story. Yeah, hopefully there is a team from Galway, and ideally from the same club as the men's team, and football in Galway because it's like a hotbed of talent. Like that's the main point here, is that like loads of young players have come through over the last while and are making it. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one. In the amber today, we have decided to put the sevens. The Irish sevens, yeah. So the men today, well, we were kind of debating about this one in the office beforehand because it was their best ever finish in. So it's kind of in the green. It's just it's kind of in the green. We only have room for 2 greens. Is that what we're saying here? A little bit. And I think while it was great that they got to where they did, I think there was some disappointment, especially with the defeat to New Zealand, in that we could have very easily snuck a bit of a win there, and we didn't manage to do it. So great that to win the bronze medal and beat Australia in 1914. And you look at the names we're beating, like South Africa, New Zealand, Australia. We all know that they're big teams when it comes to rugby, whether they're 7s or 15s. So I think it was a great success for the men's and builds on a great year for them in general. It's harsh that they're not in the green, in fairness. It is it's a little harsh. Anytime you reach a Rugby World Cup semi-final, you're trailblazers, it turns out, because we obviously have a quarter-final hex. We're like the Mayo footballers, slightly hexed. However, we just didn't have enough room for green, right? Yeah, they're officially the women's team. I think would they consider themselves unfortunate, but they ended up, was it in the 5th to 7th? 7th, yeah. And so it wasn't for them. It definitely wasn't the tournament I think that they wanted, especially after all the attention there has been on them this year. But we can salute the men for what they did, and we swear that this is a positive orange. This is, we see what you're doing, and we're expecting you to do more next year because you're growing. Yeah. Okay. Comments coming through. Apparently the football was cancelled as they expected fans to boo during the minute's silence, especially places like Liverpool, says Damien. I mean, are they that terrified of a few people booing? I guess they are. If you were to look at the Trevor Sinclair cancellation for like pointing out that, you know, there's a kind of slightly difficult history here around colonialism, folks, that maybe this might be a big opportunity for us to revisit our attitudes. Maybe a few boos would have been like, I mean, it might have been nice to see what the fallout. Yeah. Well, there was an argument that it would make them look bad across the world, and I feel like there's very mixed opinions across the world about the monarchy in general. So I mean, I think that's safe to say. Yeah. So there are some people that would be like, oh, well, that's not very respectful. But I don't think it would have been the massive thing that the FA or the Premier League seem to think it was. Like, or else you're a functioning democracy, and people are saying, you know, you're actually a democracy, and people are saying, I have a difference of opinion here. Mm-hmm. Like it's, and again, I don't know if people were specifically booing the dead queen as opposed to booing the notion of having a queen, because they're separate things. But it's, you know, there's no time for nuance when the signs are up. We're in mourning, and it's the opposite of house private. So it's been very interesting to watch what's going on. The golfers were pulled off the course, and you're like, oh, this is going to be a disaster. They're ruining the golf for the weekend, particularly when Shane Lowry's in such good form. And then it's like, nah, go back out. What's the big deal? Like, we just play. It's fine. And even like sports like rugby went ahead. I mean, most sports in England went ahead, I think, apart from the football, argument being that she was like patron of the FA and it meant a bit more and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, wishy-washy, like very wishy-washy. Yeah. I don't know, I think maybe, I don't know if they acted in haste or if there was something more to it, but it just does seem very bizarre that of all sports, it didn't go ahead. We're going to talk... Sorry, go on. Well, like, because you could just do, like, I think it would have made more sense to actually do tributes to her at the games, and it would have, rather than just nothing at all. I don't really get the whole idea of having complete silence over everything.
Yeah, a minute's applause, maybe. Do you know? Is there like
Exactly.
Is there
And
an
get rid of the
alternative
booze then.
Okay, so in the green,
We have the one and only Shane Lowry, and also we have the winner of the US Open, Alcaraz, the future of tennis.
yeah, it is here. It is now. He started the season like a house on fire, had a bit of a wobble around Wimbledon time, and then roared back in. And Jenny Claffey's going to join us in studio, so we can talk about this a bit more later on. Swiatek, as I said, fairly sensational performance from her across the whole year, again with the exception of Wimbledon. So I don't know, maybe the fact that Wimbledon had no ranking points this year, the kids were like,
just didn't care as much.
no, not having it, don't care, show me your tradition, show me the ranking points, that's all. So we'll see next season if they both come and win in Wimbledon. We'll be able to retrospectively fit that narrative nicely to it. But to the golf, right? So, as I said, Black Hat Patrick Reed comes out and rips the course up yesterday and sets a clubhouse lead and sets a great score. And then John Ram starts firing in the birdies, and Shane Lowry matches them. And coming down the last, Lowry has a putt for eagle that he tickles down to the hole, gives himself a one-stroke lead, and the only other golfer out on the course with the opportunity to do anything to stop him winning is Rory McIlroy. And
saw a lot of very confused fans yesterday about who they're supposed to be shouting for.
Well, that's it, right? I think if you trace the week that Rory McIlroy has had, like the CEO of Whoop last week was tweeting that there's no other sport that needs this one athlete more than golf at the moment. And he got a lot of flack for that. But he's an independent person. He's not like an Irish person who's going, Rory McIlroy is the most important person in golf. But over the last 5 months, Rory McIlroy has become the most important person in golf. Tiger is kind of obviously in the background, but not the force that he was because of the car accident, and is still recovering and recuperating for that. They've invented a whole new sport to try and popularise it, where they're going to go to places like, the O2 Arena, pardon me, and the stadium thing that they're talking about doing. So we'll see whether or not that works. He's been this single bulwark against live golf. If he had decided to go, that would have been it. Golf would have been completely changed. And the amount of money that they must have offered him to do that is eye-watering. It's the type of money that all the other golfers have found it impossible to turn down. But if they'd got Rory, that would have been the end of it. And so he comes out and puts his best form together and wins the 16 million or whatever it was 2 weeks ago. And then on the last, he's standing over the ball in the fairway, knowing that he needs to make eagle to force a playoff against Lowry, who has been, in fairness, also this week very strong about the whole thing. And he stitches it, and then he's standing over the putt, and it's was it Wayne Riley doing the commentary? The giant white hole is calling the ball towards it here, and I don't know if you saw the putt, but
I did, yeah.
One more revolution, he just didn't hit it.
Do you think he's trying to make another hero for the golf tour?
Oh wow! I don't think so. I think he's such a competitor that. But what a playoff it would have been!
Oh, it would have been sensational. And I feel like there would have been a lot of hoarse voices afterwards. But it was great to see Lowry win, and even his speech afterwards I thought was very good. And like you say, much like McIlroy, he has been one of the voices speaking out against Liv over the last week, and he's been quite strong. And I did kind of like when he was saying this is a win for the good guys. After all the talk there had been during the week about what was going to happen at this event, and I think maybe it was slightly calmed down by the fact that the Queen died and there was that extra day. I think attention moved off the politics of it slightly over the whole event. And
then Patrick Reed brought it all back up on Sunday morning.
Patrick Reed brought it all back up on Sunday morning.
And no better man. Patrick Reed's going to be an interesting character in this whole thing now over the next while. He's obviously decided he's going to start talking about stuff. He said he won't talk about the family stuff, and so therefore he's got no defence against people accusing him of whatever it is that they're accusing him of. So that will be interesting to see how that develops. Here's a question from the comments that I don't know the answer to. Would that have been the first all-Irish playoff on the tour if Rory had held that putt? That's from Rick Jagger. I don't know. Is there anybody out there who's a golf history buff who could tell us? Has there ever been a playoff with just a couple of Irish golfers? I don't know. Was there ever one with Harrington and somebody.
That's what I was thinking.
Was there ever one? I don't know. I mean, do you think that would be the era?
If Nathan is sitting at home listening, he can text into the show, because I feel like that's the sort of thing he might know.
From his sick bed. Danny Mack says, I like history, so after watching the monarchy history over the weekend, the Bundesliga should have been cancelled. Hey, see what you did there, Danny. We see what you did there. If you want to get in touch, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number, or of course you can get us on at Off the Ball AM on Twitter is the best Twitter handle for the show. In terms of the tennis, right, so like quietly, almost imperceptibly, the era of Djokovic, Federer and Nadal has passed. Federer out with injury and may come and play like some kind of heritage act next season. Jenny Claffey was not writing Nadal off, you know, just that the only match that he lost this year in the slams was at the US Open. It's just that the power that he had over everybody was kind of psychological in a way, and that seems to have been broken just because his body is breaking down. And the other thing that's happened is obviously the young players coming through are really bloody good. So I don't know. I don't know how you feel about the end of that era and the fact that something new is happening.
I'm kind of excited for it. I mean, that's not to say that I didn't enjoy watching the three lads absolutely dominate, but it is nice to have other people to talk about and new conversations to have, because it does get to a point where there is only so many times you can say that people are unreal. I was fortunate enough to see a lot of the younger players play in Wimbledon when I covered it, not this year, this summer before, and there's just such an excitement, and like you say, like the bodies of Nadal and Federer, like they are breaking down. They're not able to move around a court in the way that they used to be. They're still incredible athletes, but you watching these younger players and there's a lightness to them that the older players might not have anymore. I agree with what Jenny said last week about not writing Nadal off yet. I think you look at the way he played this season, it's not as great as it has been in the past, but he still has a lot to give. Federer, yeah, I don't think anyone really expects all that much out of Federer for the rest of the time that he does play. And, I mean, Djokovic is Djokovic. He's still, like, as much as these young guys are coming up, they still do have to get past that barrier of those. And those guys, as long as they're playing, they are going to be like a concern. And I think there's a difference around them to say there is someone like Serena when she was coming to the end of her career. You know, she was very much petering out, whereas I don't think Nadal is quite there, and Djokovic definitely isn't there yet. So I'm excited to see these younger players come up, and I'm excited to talk about something else for a while, because it's why I've always preferred the women's draw to a certain extent, because you do have a bit more competition and there are a few more names in the loop, and it's not just the same three, which is probably sacrilegious of me to say to some people who are big Federer, Nadal and Djokovic fans.
It's funny, I totally understand the point. It's just that it felt like their greatness was so great, like as compared with other previous eras. I don't know, maybe the way that the game has evolved, there would have been other, like the amount of money that you win for winning the majors, the amount of prestige that you win for winning the majors. I don't know if there was more money on offer for things like the end of season. I remember there was a gold racket that Ivan Lendl used to win every year, which was actually worth as much, if not more, than, so therefore he put all his attention into that. So I don't know if what caused those three great players to rise up simultaneously, or fairly close to being simultaneous. But Alcaraz was involved in a 5-setter in the round of 16, a 5-setter in the quarterfinal, a 5-setter in the semi, and then a handy 4-setter in the finals against Ruud, which means that like he didn't have it easy, you know. And I think was the second longest match in US Open history. Was one of them was either the quarterfinal. I think it was the quarterfinal against Sinner.
Yeah, it was the quarterfinal. That was the one that went on until like 3 a.m. in the morning. It was absolutely ridiculous.
So he didn't win it easy. And it is exactly the type of thing that is going to make everybody stand up and take notice. And again, he's not 20 until next May, so I don't know exactly when the French Open is next year, but certainly he's the youngest, I think the youngest world number one. It's basically the birth of a superstar has happened on Amazon Prime this week. So
youngest US Open winner since Pete Sampras, I think, as well.
Okay, he had an okay career.
Yeah, in 1990. So, and he played Agassi in that final. So
Yeah, that was an era, right, where those guys were, you would have said, very talented. I don't know what the difference between them and the Djokovic, Nadal and the hoovering up of all of the majors is.
I think it's just the complete dominance of them. Like, there wasn't anyone else in the conversation for so long, and it's so rare you get that in a sport where you might have one team or one player who's particularly good, but to have three competing in a single person sport at the same time and just no one being able to get near them, it's like, it is insane. I don't know if we will ever see the likes of it again. I hope we do, but it does feel like a once in a lifetime thing.
Yeah, unless Rude and Alcaraz and
Sinner
or TFO, we'll see.
Yeah.
He's a bit older. He's 24. He's now lad making the breakthrough
ancient.
at this. Yeah. Right. If you've got a view on anything that we've covered or haven't covered, then we'd love to hear from you this morning. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. We should give a shout out here to John Duggan and Virtual Insanity for the insane run that he is on at the moment. He tipped his headline tip this week was Shane Lowry for the golf, and for those of you who were on his headline tip, he also mentioned Patrick Reed. I think I think his profits up. It was 22% heading into this one, so we'll get the exact figures for you later on in the week. But he is a man on fire as it stands for there. Was there anybody else that we wanted to put in the green? Was there anything else?
I think we covered it all there. I thought Ciara McGeehan had another good run at the weekend.
The Fifth Avenue Mile was the race. We talked a little bit about this with Eamon Coughlin on the show last week in advance of the Griffith Avenue Mile, which is next week, and now it turns out they shut down Fifth Avenue for that. She was beaten by Laura Muir in that, so Muir obviously turning the tables on her from the Diamond League.
I was going to say, I feel like that's a classic rivalry between the two of them. They seem to go toe-to-toe quite a lot.
Yeah, it's brewing into something nicely and coming up to the boil, so hopefully there'll be plenty of them in the Diamond Leagues next year, and they hopefully both make loads of money from it. Right, at 7 minutes past 8, though, that is this week's edition of the Gillette Labs Performance Rankings.
OTB AM's Performance Rankings with Gillette.
Yeah, if you want to get involved in the performance rankings, the best place to do it is on our Instagram feed. Make sure you subscribe to it's just at Off the Ball. And on Sunday nights, you can tell us what you think should be in the red, in the amber, or indeed in the green. And if you've got any amber suggestions, you're a bit weird, but we would definitely welcome them, because we're, as you can see, struggling to find good stuff to put in the middle part.